Okay, all set. Well, welcome everyone, including those in front of me and the TV audience, to the Wenham Board of Selectmen meeting on Tuesday, September 17th, 2019, 6:30 p.m. We could begin with an out-of-order new business in terms of appointments, and I'll turn it over to Catherine to take it over from here.
Okay, so we have 3 appointments tonight. One of them, do you want me to do the fire absolutely first?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think so.
Since
That'll
there are
clear the room
probably
about 90% of the people.
A bunch
so.
of people here just as soon go home and finish their dinners. I'll start with the fire department appointments. And I don't know, Chief, if there are 2 appointments here, which will be separate motions, but I didn't know if you'd like to come up and speak to them.
Yeah, let me, if I could
Or-
just
Certainly.
tee
Sorry.
up this. So this is the second part to the reorganization to the fire department. So originally, the fire department, prior to the reorg, had chief, 1 deputy, 2 captains, 5 lieutenants, and then the privates. After the reorganization, it was agreed upon for 1 chief, 2 deputies, 1 captain, 5 lieutenants, and then the privates. The reorganization was cost neutral, didn't cost anything to the town. At a previous meeting, you appointed the 2 deputies, and tonight, you have the next appointments in line.
Okay.
Okay. Tee that up for you, okay, Chief?
Yes. Thank you for taking us out of order.
Most welcome.
Well, you guys are usually out of order, aren't you?
Yes.
Every time you hear a sound, you just race somewhere.
I think we'll end up going one at a time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
please.
It is with pleasure that I forward the recommendation for a promotion within the Wenham Fire Department. Upon completion of the recent interview process with my senior staff, Deputy Chief Baxter, Deputy Chief Sullivan, and I, the interview committee has selected Lieutenant John Joyce for the position of captain. John has demonstrated many qualities that will benefit the town of Wenham in his new role as a captain. John has been a firefighter for the town of Wenham for 22 years and is a certified paramedic with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. John has also received certification for Firefighter 1-2 from the Massachusetts Firefighting Academy. I recommend his appointment as captain effective September 17th, 2019.
Okay, so I'll make the motion and then see. So the first motion then, as I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint John H. Joyce as call fire captain, for a term beginning September 17th, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Any further discussion?
No, thank you for
All
your-
I've got to say is, congratulations, Captain.
Yeah.
Thank you
You made
for
me
all
wait till
the
after
years
the
of
vote.
service.
Well, where's the vote? So let's, before we do the pinning,
Oh,
let's
hold on,
just,
hold on, wait,
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 one
wait.
second.
You're not captain quite yet.
yeah, no, we just have to
Okay.
vote, it's just a formality. All in favor?
Aye.
Now you're
Okay, now you're
You
captain.
have to make it a vote, that's right.
Oh, that's cute.
Very cute.
I feel a tweet coming up.
Come on, Jamie.
Take your time. It's practice for when, wedding.
Stab it.
All right. Good job.
Jack? Congratulations.
Come on
Nice
up here,
uniform.
Jack.
Nice uniform, too.
Let's congratulate you as well.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great job, thank you so much.
Congratulations. Thank you.
And we have yet another. Go ahead.
It is with pleasure that I forward the recommendation for a promotion within the Wenham Fire Department. Upon completion of the recent interview process, my senior staff, Deputy Chief Baxter, Deputy Chief Sullivan, and I, the interview committee has selected firefighter Sean McCarthy for the position of lieutenant. Sean has demonstrated many qualities that will benefit the town of Wenham in his new role as a lieutenant. Sean has been a firefighter for the town of Wenham for 11 years and is a certified Massachusetts emergency medical technician. Sean has also received certification for firefighter 1-2 from the Massachusetts Firefighting Academy. I recommend his appointment as lieutenant effective September 17th, 2019.
So the motion on that one is I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Sean P. McCarthy as call fire lieutenant for a term beginning September 17th, 2019, and ending June 30th, 2020.
I'll second that.
Do we, discussion, maybe we should vote?
Nope,
before the-
Yeah.
all in favor of voting
Aye.
for it?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, congratulations.
I won't get ahead of ourselves.
Yay. Very nice. Oh, who's going to be the lucky one? Don't make him bleed, okay? Messes up the white shirt. Wow, that's a nice badge.
How cute.
It helps.
This is great.
Can you get it? Am I in your way?
Fine, nope.
Okay.
Should have practiced that at home.
They're practicing for the, when they get married, you know? Yeah, family picture. Okay.
Nice.
Wait. You're still famous. Great.
Sean, come on up here.
Congratulations. Thank you. And good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hope I never have to see you, but thank congratulations. As an EMS guy, anyway. Okay, you can all go home.
Thank you for coming.
See it on TV, YouTube. Harry can take her usual seat. Win Dodge can sit down. I saw him standing up there. It's not usual for him.
Sorry to have taken your audience.
I know.
I know.
Yeah, what's going on here?
It's gonna echo now. Okay, ready? Okay, so the next and final appointment that we're addressing tonight is for the Inspector of Buildings, and the motion will be for Angelo Salamone. And do you have an intro on that, or is Jackie gonna?
Sure, I'll happy to talk on that. So we went through an interview process. 2 final candidates were selected. The interview committee consisted of Jackie, Peter from Hamilton, and Margaret,
Patrick.
Patrick, I'm
Patrick
sorry,
Griffin.
Patrick, and Margaret. They did oral interviews, as well as we did a zoning case study on both individuals.
Yep.
And it was recommended unanimously by the committee to present to you tonight Angelo Salamone for our permanent building inspector.
Nice.
So I'll make the motion. Angelo is there. Okay. Would you like to come up for a second while I make this motion? I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Angelo Salamone as Inspector of Buildings for a term beginning September 30th, 2019, and ending March 31st, 2020.
Second that,
May I ask him to introduce himself and say a few words
please do.
before we vote, which we will do? All right. Love a guy who's
Nice.
prepared.
It's only 1 page, that's good.
That's not even. It's not even.
So, as you know, I'm Angelo from Salamone from Winfield. I began my career in the building industry after high school, where I trained as a carpenter. I look forward to serving Hamilton and Wenham. When I decided to become an inspector, close to home, in a rural community, is where I wanted to be, versus a big city atmosphere. That said, I intend to meet and exceed expectations.
Great. Thank you. Well, you got 2 rural communities. So, it's
I
good.
call Winfield a rural community in the middle of an urban area.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, do we have further discussion?
I have a question. So has Hamilton already voted on this appointment?
So Hamilton is going to be voting on it at their meeting next week.
Okay.
Okay.
He says
There
a
we
joint
are.
appointment of the two towns.
Yes, it's joint appointment of the two towns. I was at the Hamilton Board of Selectmen at their last meeting to get introduced to them. I also told them about the process, so they know that the Wenham Board of Selectmen were voting tonight, and that they'll take it up next week.
Okay?
So is our appointment contingent upon their appointment, or is this, the
So-
motion I read was not contingent? I don't remember how
We're
that
the
works.
lead community for,
Correct.
so
We are
it's
hiring.
it's more just, I think, rubber stamping Hamilton.
Yeah, it's just following Mass General Law.
Right.
It's the board that has to appoint them. but
I
we're
wouldn't
the
call it
hiring
rubber
board.
stamping,
hiring
that's kind of an
authority, yeah.
insult, but anyway.
Well, so the motion has been made and seconded, and
All in favor?
Maloney has
Excuse me?
been-
We haven't voted
Aye.
on it yet.
Aye.
Now we voted.
unanimous. Thank you very much. We look forward to you
Good luck.
joining us.
Yep.
Good
I
luck.
look forward, Mr. Salamone, to seeing your performance, and I don't know a lot about you yet, but it's a very, very important position in this town.
It'll be
So-
good news if he doesn't
Yeah,
ever
it's,
get to know a
very
lot about
important
you. Just for everybody's sake.
Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. Look forward to it.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
I'm sure we have a docket of 3 or 4 issues to start off with. I can think
Yeah, I
of one. I'm
know.
not going to announce it on public, but
No,
anyway.
no, please.
So
Okay.
I think you're done, is that right?
Done with the appointments.
All right. Now we're back to, anybody standing can sit, because I think there's plenty of chairs.
True.
All right, the announcements. We have a Citizens Leadership Academy again. Jackie already left the room, all right, guess it's up to me. The academy is free and open to all Wenham residents, offering the opportunity to learn about department functions and services, meet town staff and ask questions, tour facilities, and learn new ways to get involved. Oh, there she is. Register on the town website at wenhammass.gov or in person at the town clerk's office or in the permitting office. Jackie, would you like to say a couple of words about the Citizens Academy?
Has Jackie ever passed up an opportunity to talk about the Citizens Academy? Are you still accepting
We are
applications?
still accepting folks.
Put the
and-
microphone down a little bit, okay?
Yeah. You didn't think I could grow, Jack?
You started to talk without it up, and it was above your hairline, so I saw it by your nose. I didn't know whether you're going to move it or not.
Looking for a step stool in the
Yeah, me,
21 budget.
you and me both.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a
no,
pillow cushion,
We're
too.
very excited. I'm still accepting folks who are interested. But tomorrow night we kick off with Jack and Anthony and myself. Getting
This is the
to
big
know-
night, the big night.
And so we're very excited to get to kick off. As many of you know, we feature all of the different areas of town government. It's very engaging, very interactive. Great way to get your feet wet if you're interested in looking to join a board or a committee. It's a great way to get to know the landscape, get to know how things work. And then obviously we end with our mock town meeting. So we really try to encompass the whole experience for someone who participates in local government, from board and committee meetings and learning about the budget process to where it all comes together at town meetings. So look, very excited about this group, but we're still definitely accepting new applicants. A lot of new folks this year, a lot of new people to the community. I would
Great.
say more than 50% new
Great.
residents within the last year. So I'm very
Wow.
excited
Wow.
that we have this engagement from folks who are so new to Wenham. So
Yeah.
very excited to see that group come in tomorrow night.
I think that's wonderful. It's a marvelous program, and I wish we had done this back years ago, so that us who had to learn through the osmosis, I guess, or people like Wynn Dodge or Tom Tanis and Peter Hersey.
They're still around, are they?
They are still
Okay.
around. But this is a great opportunity for anybody in Wenham to take advantage of what do we do in town here. We don't just come and show up for meetings. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and you'd be more than welcome to participate. Once you've taken this course, you'll have a better idea what each department does, what each committee and commission does, and
Yeah, soup to nuts. so
soup to
speak.
nuts. Yep.
Well, thank you, Jackie.
There's a few
Thank
cookies in
you
between.
so much.
Yeah, cookies
So,
and lemonade tomorrow night.
All right.
Just anecdotally, I think that during the course of the year, particularly in the springtime, we receive a lot of requests for appointments for various committees and boards. And just as my personal observation and preference, that anybody who's actually completed this, I'll call it a course, wishes to be on a board or committee, in my view, would take preference over somebody who hasn't done so. and that if somebody wants to spend the time to learn about how the town functions and is willing to serve on a committee or board, that person should have, in my opinion, priority over, depending on the circumstances, over other applicants. Anyway. Next, we have a lunch and learn at the Council on Aging, how to avoid ever-changing scams. Everyone is invited to the Wenham Council on Aging on Wednesday, tomorrow, at 11:30, for their popular Lunch and Learn series for an important information session on how to avoid ever-changing phone, email, and mail scams. Yes, indeed. Led by Detective Jason Lucontoni of the Wenham Police Department. Contact the Council on Aging at 978-468-5529 with any questions. The next, I always take advantage of the following one. The annual Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day for all Wenham and Hamilton residents will be held on Saturday, October 5th, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Hamilton DPW yard, which is located at 577 Bay Road. Please see the town website for a complete list of accepted items and fees. Checks payable in which you can discard and which you can't. Checks made payable to the town of Hamilton will be the only form of payment accepted. Contact Hamilton Town Hall with questions if you wish. 978, this is the Hamilton Town Hall, 626-5227. Again, 626-5227. Next, we have the Hamilton Cultural Council grant applications, CCG. The Hamilton Wenham Cultural Council is accepting grant applications through October 14th for $10,500 in support of organizations, schools, and individuals funding cultural activities in the community, such as exhibits, festivals, field trips, short-term artist residencies, or performances in schools, workshops, and lectures. That's a lot. For local guidelines and complete information on the Hamilton Wenham Cultural Council, visit the town website for the link to the online application form and guidelines. I think I just did that. We did all of the announcements. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Next, we go to Anthony.
Okay. So my report's
Tell me, shut the door.
So, Mr. Chairman, my report's 2 pages, but
You'll condense it
I'll
down?
condense it down. This is, my report's 2 pages, but I'll condense it down for you.
That's good.
30 seconds.
Just as a summary to the report, lots going on in a couple weeks. Had the opportunity to tour the Hamilton Wenham Library, met with Kim Butler. We went over some of the issues that she may be facing in the future with capital projects and so forth. She replaced her phone system, so we're opening that dialogue. Met with the planning department, our land use committee. We talked about, now that we are an MVP community, we're getting ready for what is the best projects that we have to go for action grants now. So we met with our consultants, Weston and Sampson, and Margaret, myself, Jackie will be at the next meeting. So we're working to really make sure that we can put together a very competitive application for a project.
By project,
So
some examples
Some
of,
examples is there's a couple of culvert projects that Bill Tyak
okay,
wants to do that would be eligible under this grant. We're looking at whether or not a generator for the Buca School could be something that we could apply for the grant. So looking at all those, because obviously right now Buca doesn't have a
so things that we don't have in
Things
our
that we don't
normal
have. and-
repertoire.
Right, and projects that we need to address
Yeah.
at some point that we can get
And they
state
take a
funding.
capital investment of sizable nature,
Yes, they'll have caps on them and so forth, but
yeah.
we have projects that we can.
Some of
get
the
on
ones
that.
you've mentioned have been on our thought process for
Yes.
a long time, you're
Yeah.
right. Good.
So on the personnel issues, last week was Christine Dolan's last day in the finance office. She's going into the private sector, and obviously tonight you made the appointment for Angelo Salamone, so we'll be getting his start date once we send him his offer letter tomorrow. Also want to thank Peter Blanchett for filling in as the interim. That was a great help to us, and of course for Jackie for all her work and and coordinating, juggling a lot during this whole time, so.
Trying to keep all the players.
Yeah, it's not easy, and she really does a great job. Also, last week, and the police department and the fire department, in conjunction with the Hamilton Police and Fire Department and other external stakeholders, being Beverly Hospital representatives, the ambulance, Beauport ambulance, and the school department, we participated in a tabletop emergency preparedness exercise. So we had that in Beverly, and that was a Wenham mass casualty tabletop exercise. And there were 5 objectives to this exercise. First one being law enforcement identified, secure the inner and outer perimeter, and develop an evacuation and traffic coordination plan. To identify the stakeholders, both internally and externally, that will participate in the unified command and illustrate their roles in the command and general staff positions. Unified command will identify critical objectives, required personnel and resources for a mass casualty incident. Emergency medical responders will establish triage, treatment, and transport areas according to Massachusetts Emergency Medical Services Mass Casualty Incident Plan. And public information and personnel will monitor broadcast outlets, social media platforms to provide incident updates and dispel rumors utilizing applicable public and private sector public information. Special thanks to Bob Breaker, who wrote the grant that made this exercise possible. You know, you never want to think that, you always want to think that something's never going to happen in the community, but, you know, as the Merrimack Valley incident, so just a year ago, saw those explosions, the main incident that happened, you know, we have to be prepared, and the really police and fire, they did a great job. It was very impressive. It was a day-long exercise, and they really pulled together. And it was just a tabletop exercise, but you could, everybody took it very seriously, and we all had roles that we had to participate. I was there as well, and it's great that we had that opportunity to do that. I don't know, Captain, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, we had close to 70 people there.
Yeah.
So it was, we couldn't have been happier with the turnout. And the hope was to get all different agencies involved, you know, to fit the needs of what we were looking to accomplish, especially with our accreditation purposes for the mass police accreditation. It needs to be multi-jurisdictional, and we had, you know, a bunch of agencies, and like Anthony said, everyone had a job, so the way it was structured and set up, it forced your involvement, which was, it put some people outside of their comfort zone, but that's what provides the most accomplishment. And then coming up, I believe is October 15th or 16th, is a formal after-action review based on the exercise. And so that's where we'll learn even more of kind of what we did good, what we did bad. But it was a productive full day. There wasn't a lot of downtime, and from beginning to end, the guys were right at it. So it was nice.
Question. What municipalities, aside from the agencies within our departments, police, fire, and so forth, hospital, what municipalities participated?
So we had...
and also was Nemlik involved in there? NEMA? MEMA, okay.
Yeah, so we had Mass State Police was involved.
Okay.
We had the 2 different gas companies. We had...
Kinder?
Yeah, Kinder Morgan.
Kinder
And
Morgan.
then we had Tennessee Pipeline.
National Grid.
Oh, because they've got a big pipeline coming through.
Yeah,
Wenham.
National
Yep.
Grid. We had, as was mentioned, the emergency management. Oh man, I'm trying to think. There were a bunch. There probably had to be representatives of, I would say, 15 to 20 agencies.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's my question is,
Yeah.
you know, who really was part of this?
Yeah, it was, you know,
So it wasn't
MBTA
just Wenham or Wenham
No,
Hamilton?
we tried to tie it into relative to, in a real scenario, what agencies would have to be involved based on the, you know, the after effects of the gas explosion. So those were all tied in, and as mentioned, Bob Breaker had put up, you know, it was about a year after. We went in front of NERAC in Burlington. They have monthly meetings there, and they're the governing body that oversees the distribution of the grant funds. And we went there probably about 2 or 3 times before we got the official allowance of, okay, you've provided enough documentation, now we'll go ahead and release that money. It wasn't just a slam dunk, here you go. It was, you know, he put a lot of legwork into it, took pride in it, and with his background, it was, you know, it wasn't totally green to that. He, you know, based on his experience with the Coast Guard, he brought a lot of that to him, so it was nice.
It was really well done. It would be nice if we actually had more grant money to
Right.
do the
A full scale.
full-scale
exercise.
practice exercise. But just that alone
Right.
was incredible, you know, because you do have that little bit of chaos in the beginning when a situation happens, and all of it, you know, and then you see everybody working together, and then it just starts being a smooth operation, so really was impressive. to be
Yeah,
quite
and what was nice about it is they broke it down into different components at different tables. So, and it wasn't with people you would have necessarily ever even met before, and it kind of forced you to, and it was broken down, I think it was 4 modules,
Mhm.
and each one had a different task that you guys, that, you know, that they had to try to accomplish. And so they had to work together to get to that end result, so it was pretty neat. And what we did is, we had myself and the chief, and then we did the 3 sergeants, and then we did the detective, and we did Chad LeBrie, because he's our public information officer.
Oh,
So that's why we tied him in, which was nice, and then that, oh, and we also had, Guilfoyle had representatives there as well, because they would be involved with the distribution of, you know, press releases and whatnot, so they were there, and they worked with the public information officers at the different agencies to distribute, you know, how they would normally do it. They even went as far as to have videos, as far as real
Yeah.
news reports that they do up ahead of time. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, I'd also like to put a plug in for Bob Breaker, because
Yeah.
we're very fortunate to have that
So
man
lucky.
who's worked at the national level
Yeah.
Yep,
on programs just like this.
yeah, exactly.
He put a lot of time into it.
He
I
really
bet he did, yeah.
He's also a recently retired Reserve Wenham police officer, and who was a very active member of the Wenham Veterans Committee, and
Right.
and
That's
very
right.
helpful as well.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that from all of this, there'll be some internal, you know, planning done, or action planning, and possibly translate into some things that we need, or
Correct.
requests later on, so that it kind of, you guys learned a lot, and now
Right.
a program or
And
plan will come out of
that's
it.
the goal, and to structure, you know, to get something hard in place as,
Mhm.
almost as a template, if you will,
Mhm.
for future. I mean, there's no 2 same
Sure.
scenarios.
Right.
But as the people change and the positions change through promotions and attrition and movement, if that template's still there for the next guy
Right,
to take over, it creates that, which is what we're looking for too.
great.
And it does make you realize that you need to do a little bit of work, you know? We count on the Buca School for being a shelter, but the problem is there's no generator, you know? And this was a
So-
situation where the power was gonna be out for a few days, which now meant that the Buca was really not an option to the community, so, that we would have had to utilize the high school. So we learned a lot out of this, and I was having conversations with Joe and with the captain and both chiefs from Wenham and Hamilton, and we talked about, you know, getting together and talking about this and what we can do together to be prepared, you know, for that unexpected. Hopefully that never happens.
Hopefully not.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief and Captain. Anything else?
That's it. I just want to mention that the police and fire department did a great job at the ceremony for 9/11 remembrance. It was really classy, and it's great that Wenham never forgets.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yes,
You have an announcement to make?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take a moment to recognize one of Wenham's finest citizens who passed away on September 4th, Dick Gordeau. And I think most everybody knows who Dick Gordeau is. Not only he and his wife Connie, but their son Peter and other kids have participated in so much that has gone on in the town of Wenham. There will be a memorial service for Dick on Saturday here at First Church. I hope all of those who can make it will do that, because Dick has just been a fabulous man for the town of Wenham. He was the developer of Parsons Hill, Settlers Lane, just recently finished up down here off of Arbor Street. I think his top show was really the Gordon Chapel. I mean, he is just, and he does it all, he's done it all his life in very quiet ways. So for those who can make it Saturday, 10 o'clock at First Church, please do, and spend a few minutes recognizing somebody who did so much for all of us.
He was also a very strong advocate for the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School District, as I well know.
Yep.
And that he also was perhaps the leading advocate for the new middle school there. And so that did a good job.
Oh, and also, he was on our planning committee for many years, and was the chairman of that for many years as well.
Chairman of the Planning Committee, is that right?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay, anything else?
That's
you two? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I don't have anything to report. Now we go to new business. We've already done appointments.
Do we want to do the
And,
consent agenda?
Please.
Slip that in. Okay.
I was holding that for,
Because this is,
obviously, I passed it. Yes,
yeah.
please.
So, relative to the consent agenda, 3 things on it. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve all items in the consent agenda, including the one-day liquor license for the Wenham Museum Attic Treasures fundraiser, 132 Main Street, gift and donation acceptance of 10 office chairs for the Wenham Police Department from Cubicle Solutions Incorporated, and the minutes, meeting minutes of August 6th, 2019, August 20, 2019, and September 3rd, 2019, including the release of the executive session meeting minutes of August 6th, 2019.
I'll second that.
I'll just say all the background is in the
Yeah.
packets.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you,
No
Catherine.
questions, sorry.
All right. I think you're next, John, if I haven't done anything
Yes.
wrong here. Acceptance of
see.
Green Community Grant Award and execute contract? with-
Anthony, is there
Here we are.
a motion here?
There is, it's right there.
This is a new format, so
It was, it is.
caught me by surprise. All right. we
Yellow
have-
paper too, John. That throw you off as well?
Yeah, that did even better. Anyway, yes, we have
I
a
like
Green Communities grant that I would like to say we have a motion. Okay. Oh, I move that the Board of Selectmen accept the competitive grant award in the amount of $127,086 from the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources and Green Communities Division, and authorize the chair to execute the contract on behalf of the Board of Selectmen.
I'll second that motion.
Further discussion? None? All in favor?
The only thing I want to mention,
Anthony
it's just,
was about to say something.
it's
I think.
the
He didn't
grant.
have to say anything.
Well, he had his mouth open, he didn't get
I
it.
was, in addition to the $127,000, real good thing about this grant is that it's projected to have cost savings to the town of almost $19,000 by doing these improvements in our various buildings, so.
On an annual
On
basis,
an
the
annual
19,
basis, that's what,
so saving oil, electricity.
Right. yeah, so.
Wow.
Great.
Yeah, by upgrading the LED lights and, yeah, that's what the.
Oh, we did
5
that.
years, it pays it off.
We did
It pays it
the
off, yeah.
streetlights. We've done the streetlights.
We've already
This is
done
more
that,
for
yeah.
around the buildings.
This is building, so these
Around
will
the
be
building.
LEDs, the library,
So we're going back and re-looking at our
internal.
energy consumptions.
Sure, right. So what happens is, every other year, it's a switch off. So the schools will do it, probably did it last year.
Yeah.
This year was the towns, both Hamilton and Wenham. I think Hamilton got somewhere in the $25,000. We got the $127,000. So
Wow.
next year, it'll go back to the school, so we alternate. And Vicky Massoni, who's our energy manager, really does an unbelievable job
Yeah.
with this Green Communities grant, because it's a lot of work. So really, it's a great job by Vicky for making both communities get this grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, any of the grant writing, it takes an enormous amount of time and research.
And the reporting, it's
Yeah.
really, this is one of, I'd say, the most difficult grants to to deal with, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much reporting involved.
I think he came to us on a grant originally for
That's
a couple of years.
That's
And I
right.
remember having discussions around, well, we have to pay something now to keep her on. Do we want to do that? And we did, and thank goodness, because she's
Just paid, I'm
brought in
sure
a
paid her, yeah.
lot of grants in the years, ensuing years. So kudos to her and everybody.
I've had all my lights in my house switched to LED. I was amazed at the reduction in my electricity bill after I did it. It's incredible. Thank you.
Great.
All right, now we're on
That's
to...
it.
Did
Now
we-
for the vote.
We have to vote.
Oh, right. All those in favor? Aye.
All right,
All right.
I think that's 3 ayes, okay, for the clerk. You're welcome. I only heard 2, but there was 3.
I just raised my hand really high.
Yeah. We got it. All right, on to new business. Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer. Discussion of potential approval of the Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer Association of Iron Rail Soccer sublease agreements. I would like to make a preamble first that, 20 years ago, or actually it's probably 22 years ago now, that the Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer took over a scrub field by the Iron Rail property, and that converted it at their expense into much desired and needed soccer fields. They were running it for the last, I think it's 22 years-ish, 23 maybe, and that the town doesn't pay anything into it, and that, from what I can tell, there are no complaints, and that there's, all the kids are involved in soccer at various levels, and that we think it's hats off to the Don Lake and his organization for coordinating and running this over all of these years. And what we're talking about tonight is basically 2 subleases, which they've entered into, and they need our approval for Penguin Academy and the Landmark School System, right.
Yeah.
So let me just read the motion, and we'll bring it up for discussion. And Anthony's been involved in back and forth negotiations over this in terms of the amount of payments and the timing of the payments, so I'll turn it over to him after I read the motion. Move the Board of Selectmen approve the proposed Iron Rail Field sublease agreement between the Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer Association and Academy of Penguin Hall from September 1, 2019 through August 31st, 2020. Secondly, move the Board of Selectmen approve the proposed Iron Rail Field sublease agreement between the Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer Association and Landmark Schools from September 1, 2019 to August 31st, 2020. Anthony.
Thanks, Jack. So Don Lake and I have been going back and forth on this. We've really been working off the existing agreement that was approved the last time, except we wanted to make some changes that would make sure that the payment was received prior to them taking the field, not after the fact. So what this contract does is, the season already started, but we'll receive a half a payment in January, and we'll receive the other half a payment in April. Also in April, we're gonna receive the next payment for, because they're in the year, for next year, and we'll receive the second payment in August. So that means we're gonna have payments before they take the field. So in the event that there was a no payment situation, then they don't take the field, where if they were already had it and they didn't pay, damage was already done at that point. So we're trying to get to the point where we have the money first. There's really other minor changes. The Board of Selectmen would, not really minor, but the Board of Selectmen would approve the contract. And that we had the right to notify the Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer Association before April 1st, if in the event that we want to reopen this for next year, or we could just let it go on and on.
So this would be renewed on an annual basis?
If the Board of Selectmen so chooses.
Okay.
No, we can let it go, but there's a drop dead date. If we don't want it to go forward, by April 1st, we have to notify Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer, we want to renegotiate the contract.
And let them know why we want them. So say if we feel like we want to increase the fees, we would just notify them that the Board of Selectmen is opting to open up negotiation for the purpose of, we're looking to get much more for the field usage from both parties. So that's just an example.
Yep,
It can be something else.
yep, yep.
But we wanna let them know.
Start dates, end dates.
Start date, end
I'm very
dates.
familiar with leasing
Yeah.
programs. My concern has been, as much as I thank Jack for the recognition of Don Lake and so forth, that this has been a fairly arduous and very delinquent process in the past. And I trust that there's enough teeth in this contract now to hold people accountable to making sure that, as you're describing, we're paid both on time and ahead of schedule, that the usage would take place on. So I'm encouraged to hear the good stuff, but I would like assurance that there's not going to be delinquency again, because some of this went back almost 3 years, and that's very, very unfair for the town of Wenham.
So I think this board could have been a little more, we were aggressive in the past year. So the payments weren't due until September 1st of the year after. For example, the payments for the year ending beginning September 1st, 2018 through August 31st, 2019 weren't due to September 1st, 2019, which is ridiculous, but that's the way it was. Or actually, it was undefined in the previous agreements. So it was, you could interpret it, they owed the money September 1st, 2018 or 19. So this agreement here codifies the fact that they, as Anthony mentioned a few minutes ago, prior to in the times and circumstances he is just described, and that there are other changes in this agreement that give the Board of Selectmen oversight over at least the payments and the timing of the payments that we hadn't had in the past, and that this mirrors actually it was a 25-page agreement we have with the Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer Association, which was executed about 22 years ago, and it was not renewed. Yes, it was renewed a couple of years ago for another 10 years or whatever. So I think this is a huge improvement, and that I'm pleased that John Lake and the Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer, as well as his constituent subleasees, Penguin Hall and Landmark Schools, are in agreement of this, because they had to be in agreement in order for this to be presented tonight. And they are in agreement, we've been assured through Don Lake. So I think that,
I do have one more question for Anthony, I assume.
Yeah,
And that is,
ask away. Catherine might have too.
I might.
what do we have in our system to assure the Board of Selectmen, and in the case that this is actually overseen by the Iron Rail Commission, are both notified of any delinquency or any payment problems whatsoever? That's where I saw a lot of weakness from our point of view, is that
Yes.
there wasn't a mandatory cue in our finance department to say, this was due on September 1st, and it's now September 15th.
So, we had this discussion about communication last night, and I think that's the key. So, I plan on putting this in our calendar, in the TA's office. It'll be in my calendar, Nikki's calendar, Patty's calendar, just in a little bit in advance, to just have that conversation, to send that email to Dawn. We're getting, April 1st is coming up, January 1st is coming around the block. We
Yeah,
just want
That's
to
right.
set a reminder that the payment's due.
To me, it's much akin to property tax payments.
Right.
They're due and payable on certain dates, and if there isn't, then our finance department goes into action and has other remediations to take care of.
Well, I'm sorry.
Our previous problem is it wasn't clear from the agreement when the payment was due. That was the whole problem.
Correct, yep.
Okay, so
Yep.
they claimed it wasn't overdue. And that, and we couldn't cite anything in the agreements that said it was overdue. Now we can.
Yep.
Also, I definitely agree, more specificity is better. I guess I would have to do, to your point, communication is part of it, but we know that we have a history in this case of plenty of communication to them that money is due. We didn't find out the whole thing didn't break for a while, but after that time, they had plenty of communication. What I don't see in this is the teeth that give you just said, then our finance
To my
board
earlier
would
point.
go into action. There really isn't anything that I saw here, and it's probably a simple addition, that makes the wording a little stronger with respect to the landlord not receiving payments. I mean, this talks about default, and it says, I'm just using the Academy one for example, that if they're in default, the Youth Soccer Association would provide written notice, which is perfect, and they should have 20 days to correct the default. And if they fail to cure the default within 20 days, the Youth Soccer Association shall have the right to terminate the agreement. All of that is good, but ultimately, this is an agreement that has been approved with us, and I don't see any language that says, and if the default is not cured, the town, who is the landlord, gets involved in some point. So that would be something that I think is, I think in these situations, given our history, a little more legal teeth to enforcement and involvement of the town would be a good addition.
And who
one
would be
comment.
responsible for the legal cost to make those collections as well?
Yeah, that's another issue. I just would like someone to write some language that makes it very clear that we have a vested interest in this money being collected, and it's just, can't be that, the Youth Soccer Association says, oh, you didn't pay, and they say, oh, yeah, well, we didn't, and 20 days go by, and then the Youth Soccer Association has the right to terminate. But we also have the right to terminate the youth soccer agreement if
then
a
we'd have-
sublease
Then
is
I would
in.
assume that we go back to the lease that or the agreement that we have between the town and the
Yes.
Hamilton Youth Soccer, and then get our attorneys involved for remediate the issue.
I think that is the way it would work. I think, and I have a couple other comments, and they're all along the same lines. Again, I don't think people have forgotten the history. I think that this is the agreement that the parties are going to be looking at the most, and we have a default section in it, and why wouldn't we right there, even if it says, beyond that, refer to the lease, just something that points to something other than, well, the Youth Soccer Association shall have the right to terminate the agreement. That just doesn't, actually, it's in there twice, by the way, but that's not.
What recourse is there to make the town
Yeah.
of Wenham whole?
And there is apparently recourse in the bigger lease, so at the very least, I might recommend repeating language, but at the very least, we ought to reference the fact that beyond this, if this doesn't work, that I don't know what that's called, the main lease, whatever section would come in, because, if it doesn't say it.
Right.
Well, we can add a cover letter to this for that. I don't think we're going to change at least two. I don't think that the combined payments for these two leases are less than $10,000. And so we don't want to spend a lot of legal costs trying to chase $10,000. Secondly, I would not be a participant in this Board of Selectmen if we're going to shut off any of the schools in Landmark and Penguin Hall by using the soccer fields because they're 30 days late and say you can't use the soccer fields, and have a bunch of angry parents coming to the Selectmen meeting and say, what are you doing? And so, this is Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer, and this is not a $100,000 and $200,000 lease. And we've had a checkered history in the past, but I think that Don Lake has come forward and been fairly accommodating in some of the suggestions that Anthony has put forward. And I think we can put a cover letter here referencing that we're expecting payments to be on time, and referencing the paragraph in the 25-page master lease, or whatever it's called.
And that's, I
And
don't,
that,
I would not put it in a cover letter. I don't know why we couldn't just put it in the default section of the contract. You talk about not wanting to spend
Well-
legal, but you do know how much legal we have already spent because of issues with this particular contract. So I'm just trying to avoid
It's
using
only
something
one of
that I
the
think
two
that
parties,
we can-
only one of the two parties has really not been responsive in that.
Okay, this happens to be one that's here, and again, I think that the town should have some teeth, and I think a cover letter is,
I think a cover letter's enough, and that otherwise, we can't approve this tonight and have to go back again, and the Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer is expecting. This is already September 17th, and that I don't want to let it go to October 3rd for, I won't say a small a matter like that, but I don't want to have the Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer saying, look at, come on, and that we're already a month into this season, and that we still don't have an agreement, and that so some accommodation in between, I'd be happy to go along with, but I want to have this approved tonight with some amendment. If Anthony can get Don Lake to give us a side letter or whatever the right words are, that if it's in default section, whatever the master lease is called, that something, I don't know what's going to happen afterwards. They could kick him off the fields? I don't think so. We're not going to do that.
But we could legally, and we're
Yeah, but
not
we're
saying
not
that we
going to.
should. So Jack, here's an issue that I have. You clearly, and Anthony, have been involved in these discussions all along, but you're coming to the Board of Selectmen, who has the other two of us who have ultimate responsibility. The other two don't have as much information as you do. And I've said this about many, many issues. You're asking us to review it, but not make any changes, and vote on it the night that we're seeing it.
You saw it last week.
I saw it Friday,
That's not tonight.
the first meeting. And so so it's like now I feel like any comment that I make, the answer will be, well, they're waiting, so forget it. That doesn't
No,
feel like a robust conversation starter, because I do have a couple of other issues, and I'll name them.
Name them.
I mean, these are different amounts. Somehow, the lease has been negotiated to be a different amount of money than in the last 3 years. So
Right.
I guess I'd like to understand that. I may ultimately agree or disagree, but
Go ahead, Anthony.
So,
changed.
in the past, yes, both APH and Landmark were charged $6,000. Dawn and the Hamilton Wenham Youth Soccer Association felt that that really wasn't an equitable agreement for both, because the amount of field space that the Academy of Penguin Hall was using was a fraction of what Landmark was using. So, and Landmark was also providing extra services as far as working on the field and cutting the grass and so forth. So he felt that that's why lowering the Landmark, because in consideration for the other work that they do, in addition, lowering APH because they're really, there's only, I guess he was saying that there was 8 players in one of the soccer programs last year, or 5 or something. So it's barely have enough to field a team, whatever that number might be. So in the amount of field they were using, that's why he brought that number down. Or he and the Youth Soccer Association brought that number
And
down.
actually, the last payment that we received from them, they decided that they were going to pay half of what we had contracted with, right?
Correct.
So this process, we had a process to come up with the $6,000, whenever that was, 3 years ago. We did.
I don't know what the process was, but that's the amount.
I can read you the memo if you want, but there was a process, and all parties agreed to it. And it was based on something real, apparently based on, $1 per hour, not the number of kids or whatever. So this is the 4th year. The Landmark one makes more sense to me because they're really providing services in addition, so it's kind of to reduce their fee. I'm not sure, I guess these are services they just started providing?
No.
No.
So we've been
Landmark-
overcharging them for years, and now we're
Landmark has
catching up?
always done fertilizing, mowing,
Mhm.
Line striping.
striping.
That's what
yeah.
but so, again, I'm a little confused, I guess, by the fact that they've apparently been doing this line striping and everything else, and have had agreements for a certain rate for at least the 3 years that I'm aware of. And now,
Well, let me,
Don Lake has decided that,
no,
They should.
I think they pushed back on him, from what I understand. Now, ordinarily, I would have not have been involved in this conversation, but Anthony was only with us for like 2 weeks. And although I was not here for the last meeting that you and John had with Don Lake, because I was on vacation, anybody who went to YouTube saw it as a highly combative meeting. It was very contentious, and so here's Anthony here for 2 weeks, and Mr. Lake had in the past come in very assertively, and I was there to simply help background. And basically, if it turned out to that type of a meeting, I was going to there to help Anthony. I wasn't there to represent the board or anything else like that. If it was, and secondly, I think you asked Peter months ago to do a comparison of what other organizations.
and that's where this came, but it wasn't months ago, actually, it was in 2018 is when we came up
This is
with
19,
that.
so I mean.
Yes, yes,
I said months ago.
yes.
Well, this is September 2019, so months ago, you asked Peter, and he did it. And he did a survey that you asked him to do.
I think there was only one survey. It's
Yes.
now old. It was done in October of 2018.
That's old.
Well,
So
yeah,
it's a year old.
yeah. So but that is the last survey, and that's what generated the $60,000 agreement, was that with the Academy, not Landmark. This was
I
just
think-
the Academy.
When Anthony tells me that it was inconclusive. So I think your question was, what do other people charge for uses of fields? It was all over the place.
Well, I'll read it. The final conclusion, while most other communities charge fees on a per-person use or hourly basis based on the Academy of Penguin Hall's field use needs, the annual $6,000 fee that we charge them was generally found to be in line with the comparables we were able to collect, approximately $35 an hour. So that was, again, when we were entering an agreement, it was based on something real.
Yeah, so Landmark was paying for 3 fields, I'm told, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, for that money before the Penguin Academy ever showed up. And so Don Lake, Penguin Academy wanted some soccer fields. Apparently they have 5 or 6 players, or something on that order, according to Don Lake. And so Don Lake organized a agreement with Landmark where they would give up half of one of the 3 fields they were paying for. And let Penguin Hall use their 5 or 6 players use the field. So Landmark is coming back this time through Don Lake saying, wait a minute now, we did that accommodation, but we don't want to pay for 3 fields like we did in the past, because they're now only used for 2 fields and not 3. So previously, 3 years ago, or whatever it was, they had an agreement to pay $6,000 a year for 3 fields. Now they're only going to have 2 fields. And so there's a reduction in the amount of money. The Landmark is asking for a reduction in the amount of money based on that. So now Penguin Academy now has the use of 1 field as opposed to half of a field or something like that. And so, so for Landmark's case, they're basically saying, well, wait a minute, why should we pay the same amount of money when we've just had a diminution of 1/3 of our fields? So, I mean, this is what Don Lake is saying to Anthony, and I'm listening to it, and wow, that's a pretty good argument.
I think the Academy is different than Landmark.
It certainly is.
I hear you. I have a few more comments, but clearly, there's really not any point to make them. So I'm just going to say.
I want you to make your points.
No.
Yeah.
No, because the major ones are around, again, and I'm talking about the Academy, not about Landmark, because they have a legitimate reason to be asking to pay less. I don't know the history of why the Academy wishes to pay less. I understand they don't have very many kids, but my point of view, you're using a field, right? Whether you have 2 kids or 20 kids there, you're using a field. So I don't understand what the rationale would be to reduce for the Academy from $6,000 to $3,500 for what I believe is the use of the same number of fields for the same amount of time per year. I guess I may understand that they've asked for that and that Don Lake is recommending that. I don't agree with it.
But does that mean that we acquiesce? I
Well,
get
that's
your
what I'm
point.
saying. I'm just saying that may be what's on the table tonight, but only relative to the Academy. I
Yeah.
don't see any justification for reducing that. And they're, again, already on the fields, and I don't think we have an agreement, but that wasn't because we were late. I mean, I think the Youth Soccer Association and the Academy have been delinquent from the beginning. They were playing before they had an agreement in the very first year, and we've been playing each other
Excuse me.
ever since.
It was not clear from the agreements when the payment was due. That was a major problem. It said September 1st.
But it
They're
was
saying,
years later, Jack. We're not talking about the first year being a couple of months late. We didn't get the first year's payment, and I have it here somewhere. I did a lot of research on this because people have sort of, it's been a while since we talked about it, and we talked about it endlessly.
and we did,
And
we still are.
well, and we still are, because we sort of, as a board, left in January, is the last information I have. We left in one frame of mind and with a set of, with a direction. And, well, it was an executive session, so I'm reluctant to read to you what action that we said, but it was,
I can read the executive minutes. I'm a member of the board, so
well, yeah, I had a little trouble finding them, but I did find them because I remembered this conversation and I couldn't memorialize it anyway. And so we were, I guess it's fair to say, up until January, we took a pretty hard line on not necessarily not talking to people, but to just say, wait, let's maybe relook at this, maybe rewrite it, but we
needed to
we took
fix
a
the
hard line.
problems, and the problems were 2 to 3 years old
And
at that point.
they haven't changed, except for one meeting that,
You had a meeting, it was not an executive
No,
session.
but
You had
that's
a
what
TV It was on
changed.
YouTube, so you had a meeting with
There-
John and.
Yes.
So that was not an
But
executive session.
no,
Otherwise, it
what
couldn't have been on
I'm saying is,
YouTube, right? Right?
Until your meeting, let me finish, please. Until your meeting with Anthony, who must be the magic, the magic thing here, and Don Lake, the
Well, that's what he's hoping for.
most of the previous interactions have been somewhat contentious and delinquent.
Very contentious, I would say.
Right. So, great, new leaf. I'm glad he's not being contentious and he's willing to talk to Anthony and whoever else. But we didn't, in a typical negotiation, we would have had input. And if Anthony came and said, I got to talk to them about negotiating a new lease for next year, my input would have been, okay, great, $6,000. I never gave that input, and so I'm giving it now. That I think the language should be a little stronger, and for the academy, I don't see any reason for changing the,
Dollar amount.
for changing it. And I said this earlier, and this is a small point. Again, I think we need to be very specific, and we need to be very specific about not the dates as in, July 1st, but in the usage of the fields. I think unless we're very clear, as we have been in past agreements, we have defined what the fall season is and the spring season is. I think that that specificity would be useful. That's it. That's all I got.
No, let me go back to your money issue. So what are you recommending, what is your point of view on the money?
I don't see any reason to change the fees for the academy at this time. I've not heard any compelling argument
So,
other than they don't have
right now,
any
the
fees.
academy is here at $3,500.
No, the fees from last year. I don't see any rationale to change from what they're presently supposed to be paying, which is $6,000,
That's what I said.
right, to what this new.
$3,500.
Right. So my recommendation would be to continue this sublease agreement at $6,000.
Okay, now, what about Landmark?
I'm perfectly happy with
So
reducing
Landmark
landmark
has
because-
two fields, and we're going to charge them $4,500. And Academy of Penguin Hall has one field, and we're going to charge them $6,000.
Well,
Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying I have no problem with their rationale to reduce reduce their fees, but apparently they've been agreeing to, this is what I mean, this is the third year that I've been involved, that both parties have agreed to, all parties have agreed to $60,000. And if we want to, $6,000. If we want to decrease it from $6,000 for the because they're doing $1,500 worth of in-kind work, then I think the
Doing in-kind work
landmarks,
before.
well,
So Academy, let's take Landmark. Landmark had an exclusive use of 3 fields. They voluntarily gave up a half a field. We were charging them $6,000, and now we're going to charge them $4,500. Are you okay with that?
yes,
Okay.
if that's,
So for 2 fields, we're going to charge them $4,500 for Landmark. For 1 field, we're proposing to charge Penguin Academy $3,500.
well, so, you could do this the other way around. I
I'm just,
could have come in
I'm-
here and said, well, we agreed to $35, whatever I said that was, $35 an hour. So let's go back to Landmark and see how many field hours they're actually using, and really, this year, we should increase there. I mean, if I were going to
Increase
follow
what?
that, increase their fee, because the 6,000 minus is not really, the 6,000 wasn't enough. If they have 2 fields, and we calculated in 2018 that 1 field being used a certain number of hours at that amount was 6,000, then they were underpaying we didn't go, at that time, we didn't change Landmark.
I don't think there was a lot of science 3 or 4 years ago when we came up with these amounts of money, or Don Lake came up with the amounts of money. I don't recall a very robust discussion 3 or 4 years ago, excuse me, how much we should charge either one of these people for these fields. I think Don Lake made a presentation or an email or something like that, and we simply accepted it. I don't recall any,
I just read you the email.
Correct me if I'm wrong, please, but it's starting to come back to me a little bit clearer, where we had asked Peter to have a study done.
we just talked about that.
Yeah, October
And
2018.
so that was the baseline of where we came up
And
with
it-
$6,000.
And it was done that way because they were new. Landmark had been there, they had an agreement. Academy came in, we said at that time, maybe it was me, I don't remember, we got to have some data, some reason to charge them a certain amount. And it wasn't it wasn't easy, because apparently different municipalities, towns, groups charge different amounts.
Right.
We all, at that time, agreed for the academy that it would be $35 an hour.
No, that was a report from Peter. We didn't agree to anything.
Well, that's how,
The Board of
that's where,
Selectmen never, I'm a member of the Board of Selectmen for 6 years. I never agreed to say, we're going to charge them $35 an hour.
pretty sure that's where the $6,000 came
Then we sh-
about.
So you think that would be in the minutes of the previous meetings then?
It-
Of the Board of Selectmen?
Well, I
I
think
was the
it's,
clerk last year. I don't recall that.
you can look it up, Jack.
No.
I mean, we
really?
have agreements. So we have signed agreements. Well, that's not exactly true.
That's
because
not exactly true either.
But we have approved agreements, whether they're in the minutes or not, and I have them here, between the Academy and the Youth Soccer Association, and between, well, I just have the Academy. The agreements that we signed, that they signed, that we approved, were $6,000.
Yeah.
And that $6,000, if it was not tied to this $35 an hour, and I don't have those calculations, where did we get it?
I don't know, right out of the air, I think.
Anyway, I've said my piece.
Yeah, John.
That's all I have on that.
I'm concerned about the teeth in the document to see that there is there's going to be a way to make the town of Wenham whole if there is delinquencies. I understand what Catherine is saying. I can't really disagree with what you're saying at all. But the additional is, okay, if there are delinquencies, what fixes the problem? And who pays for that fix? How does that get taken care of? In all the leases I've ever dealt with, if the tenant is not doing what they're supposed to do, not making payments or whatever, then the responsibility falls completely on them, not only to make the payment, but to also pay for any legal costs for collecting that payment.
You know, if we owned a building and we were leasing it out to some retail, Grassy Roots or somebody else like that, yeah, if they weren't paying us, we'd foreclose on them and kick them out. These are kids playing soccer.
Yeah.
You know, and the amount of money we're talking about here is minuscule. And we're only talking about $3,500 versus $6,000 for people at Penguin Hall playing soccer. These are kids playing soccer. Our remedy would have to be, if we don't get paid, we kick them out. And we're not going to kick them out. Otherwise, we'd be crazy. And that, we should all be, they should call a new election for selectmen. And that, and this is, these soccer people took over this field. It was scrub and trees, and they maintain it. Doesn't cost us a penny. And that doesn't cost us any money at all. Soccer is huge in this town. And we're not going to, I'm one selectman, I would never vote to hire KPL law firm to go after.
I'm sorry, Jack, but you already have, and I suggest.
Let me finish. I let you finish.
Yes. You just said something that was incorrect, however,
Then
that you would never.
correct me afterwards, okay? I don't want to go after Academy of Penguin Hall for non-payment of whether it's $3,500, $4,500, or $600,000 during the course of the year, okay? And if they don't pay us, then we're going to just say, look, you can't play next year, or something like that. But during the course of the year, I can't believe we would actually take some action to prevent the kids, whether it's Penguin Hall or Landmark or any other kids playing soccer, to not continue the year. If they haven't paid us and they're in arrears, then we have to send notices, blah, blah, blah. You can't play anymore because whatever we have to send out. And in that, anyway. So, okay, we can, and do we have a recommendation here? What's your recommendation?
Giving you my recommendation. My recommendation is that we make more specific dates, that we, and I have language for that we do not change the Academy of Penguin Hall's fee, as it has been for the 3 years, and that in both of these, we strengthen the language with respect to our actions if they are in default. Those are the three.
Well, how would you specifically strengthen our language? I mean, what would you do?
That's where I'm a little lost, because I'm not a lawyer.
Well, neither are John and I.
Right. So if we believe that there's a sufficient language in the actual lease, and again, I have it, I could look at it, then I think maybe what we need to do is.
I read the lease. There's lots of language in there that gives us the right to behead them. We have to.
Right. So then we should perhaps just quote that language or that
It's
section.
in there multiple times, too, in
No, I
different
mean
paragraphs.
in this.
I know what you're talking about. We can, there's paragraphs in there that said, the landlord has all kinds of, it's us, all kinds of rights, and that it's repeated multiple times in different ways, in different paragraphs, and that we can reference that in the lease.
That is, that.
Sublease, not the lease.
At the least, that would be my recommendation. And one of the three recommendations.
I don't think that Academy of Penguin Hall wants to pay $6,000 for one field, but, so.
No, I'm sure that they don't.
So what if they say, no way, what are we gonna do now? Say, okay, get out? Well, I mean, this is a practical situation here.
So, let me ask a question. Is the Academy of Penguin Hall completely up to date with their payments as of today? That
For
they
this?
owe us for this field?
All payments have been made for all leases with the check that we got a couple weeks ago,
$3,000.
$3,000.
Right. So, they are not up to date to the agreement that they have already signed.
They paid
They
$3,000?
have, right?
Correct.
That's my point. That's my point.
Okay.
So yes, I agree that they don't want to pay $6,000. Whether they or the, abundantly clear. And I think
If I bring
that
this
they
back,
should.
if I bring this back next week, or, excuse me, the next meeting and the meeting after that, so if they haven't paid $6,000 for last year, which is another $3,000, you won't be happy about that, right?
I think it's, just as it was not prudent to give them a liquor license until they paid their full
Well, I just want to be
amount.
clear.
I think it's prudent to not give them a new agreement until they're fully up to date with the agreement that they've already signed.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I got your concerns. So I don't want to do this again without making sure there aren't any new concerns. So if they don't pay us another $3,000 for last year, And if they don't agree to pay us $6,000 for this year, and you would like language in here referencing I'll call it the master lease for lack of a better word, that gives us remedies to kick them out of the field, stop them from playing or something like that. Those are your,
Point to the remedies, yeah.
yeah, those are your three concerns.
Those are my three concerns.
What about Landmark?
You know, Landmark is a difficult one because it's long-standing.
Well, they were
So I
paying,
get the rationale of if they were paying 6,000, and now they're saying, but I do some stuff and when I'm not getting credit for it, that's a reasonable rationale. I don't think we want them to be paying the equitable amount to Academy of Penguin Hall. So I say for me, it's not really equitable anymore, but the more important thing, again, is the language.
no, I want to make sure the next time we bring it back, we don't recycle some of these. So are you okay with $4,500 for next year for,
I haven't,
or not?
honestly, I don't see a rationale for a change with that one either, considering that nothing has changed.
Yes, something has changed.
What?
They had the right to 3 fields, now they only have a right to 2 fields.
Okay, so they should pay 2/3 of what they were paying.
And they were willing to pay $4,000. Anthony asked them to pay $4,500.
Okay, so that, if we're going to say it's that amount per field, fine. I can, there's a rationale that I can put in my head, and if someone said to me, where'd you get that amount? I can say, oh, well, they have 3 fields, they have 2 fields, this is why. But I think, you know, we've probably spent enough time on this, in my opinion.
Well,
So you have my recommendations.
that's why I didn't want to come back and have this conversation again. I want to make sure I have all of your concerns and recommendations. So if we don't vote on this tonight, and apparently we're not going to vote on an approval, then we bring it back and we either get Academy of Penguin Hall to agree, or we'll have to, Anthony will have to have some further conversations. I just don't want to have new concerns if we brought it back again. I want to make sure we have all of our concerns on the table, your concerns particularly, about the money, particularly in the reference to what are we going to do to, they don't pay up, et cetera, et cetera. Which I think we've just, I'm sure that our able minute taker will require all this stuff. So basically, we want them to pay another $3,000 for last year, and we want them to pay $6,000 for this year.
Going forward.
For one field, even though we're okay with having Landmark pay $4,500 for 2 fields.
Well, that's a problem we created a long time ago.
Now,
So
I want to
either-
know what, I want to know what, I want to come back and have another conversation like this without a new, no, I want to have your concerns.
So if that's the case, if I say, if those concerns are addressed, are you okay with that? Are you okay if they agree?
I'm okay with whatever they want to agree to, I'm okay. I'm okay with this right here. I think there's a rationale, okay. By the way, Landmark also has to stripe the fields and cut the grass and a couple of
Yeah.
other things like that. And that, so if Landmark is willing to pay $4,500 for 2 fields, Penguin
And do
Academy-
their extra work.
do the extra work, the Academy of Penguin Hall should pay less than that for 1 field. But you want them to pay $6,000, which, that's what you're saying.
So the thing is, and really, this is not the most important thing we have on the agenda tonight, or even the biggest amount of money. The thing is, the Landmark is paying, or being proposed to pay $4,500.
Right.
Right? Plus some value that's equivalent to the amount of work that they're doing.
Which they've already been doing all along.
Right, so that's why we can't correct that unless we go back and actually increase theirs. If we believe, based on the data that we have, I believe that 6,000 is a reasonable amount, then I would naturally, if I were going to follow that logic, be asking Landmark to pay more. That part seems unfair to me, since it goes back, I don't know, how many years has Landmark not only been
Many.
playing on the fields, but, you know, doing work.
Maintaining them, yeah.
So that's a more difficult one for me. I get that, the only thing, the rationale that makes sense to me is that they would pay 2/3 of, you know, the cost of 3 fields. But I can't, I don't have an opinion on the landmark thing, because you don't want to hear it.
I do want to hear it.
No, because
I don't
really,
wanna-
I mean, I don't want to be in this, I don't have ill will against any of these people. I do have ill will against the fact that we keep making agreements, and they unfortunately are being broken, and we've taken a hard line for a long time. We seem to be softening our line, which is fine, as long as everyone agrees to that. Maybe we're turning over a new leaf, but I can only base especially dollar things on something that's tagged to something. I don't believe we can just pull a number out of the air. The Academy of Penguin Hall is the only one of these two that I understand where the $6,000 came from. I don't understand where the landmark original amount came from, or exactly what they do, or what it is. So I don't have an opinion on that. Therefore, I would default to whatever is written in the amount. I have the same concerns with language in both of these agreements.
Okay, you have your marching orders. You got that clear?
No.
I
So can we
am
just- can we
happy
just-
to,
Please,
Say it
you've been very quiet, so if you've got a question or,
So, just to get this, so we want the $3,000 from last year, from APH.
yeah,
You want $6,000 going for APH.
so no change in the amount, yeah.
Landmark is okay or not okay at their dollar amount?
I have no rationale to change landmark. So I guess if that means that I'm okay, I'm okay. I don't know how these guys feel about it. I have no rationale.
To change them from
To change
last
them
year's
from-
dollar amount to the one
Well,
that's in
either.
this one?
I don't, nothing has changed. Let me just make sure I understand. Nothing has changed, except they have fewer fields.
That's a
So
big
based
deal.
on that, that's a rationale for having them pay less. Have this year's contract be less than last year's contract. What that amount is,
Well, it's $4,500, so we're going to charge Penguin Academy $6,000 for one field and Landmark $4,500 for two fields.
which, as I just said, Jack, is not equitable. But to make it equitable means increasing landmark, not
But
decreasing
you just said
the
you were okay with
academy.
Landmark.
Because I don't, you want to take a couple more weeks? I'm happy to spend more time looking back, however many years it
We're not
is.
going to approve this tonight, so
Well,
you can take
Then
another 2 weeks.
I'm gonna ask that we get the history, and I didn't really want to do this, but I'm gonna ask that we have the history of Landmark and where the number came up originally. I mean, that's the only way for me to have an opinion other than what's on here. I know every minute of the history of what happened with the Academy of Penguin Hall, because I happened to be a selectman at the time. I think
That was I.
maybe all three of us were, probably all three of us. I was not around when I was sort of around when the original lease was signed.
Anthony, more questions?
And what sections of the agreements would you
So-
propose different language, or what language might that be?
You know
So,
what? There's lots of, let's not go, there's lots of paragraphs in there that go on and on and on forever to give the town lots of rights. You can pick 2 or 3 of those and reference them in the agreement. So that should be easy to do.
I would even just reference even just generally say, as discussed in the appropriate sections of and
As referenced.
as referenced in the lease. I think Jack is right. It's probably
You don't
written in
need to
6
reinvent the
different
wheel.
sections. It just needs to be tied to the lease. So if there's a problem here, someone knows where to look for the next level of detail of what to do, which does give us more
yeah,
teeth.
John, your turn.
I agree
It's- Agree with what?
with what Catherine
Okay.
has been saying.
Okay, we'll table this
I
tonight then.
think we need to take a little bit more time on this and
Okay?
make sure that we've got a document that makes sense for everybody's sake, or all parties' sakes.
Okay.
I'm not interested in delaying it unnecessarily, but there seems to be too much confusion. And
There's no confusion, John. It's a question of what, never mind. I don't want to,
I'm assuming that I'm going to have to now get council involved to draft some of this up.
no.
I don't
No,
think
no,
so.
time
I
out.
think there's just
Time-
one sentence.
Excuse me,
I'm
time out.
sorry.
You have to go back to Landmark and Penguin Academy and tell them, this is what some of the selectmen want for money. The rest of this, it's all money, 90% of this is money.
Yeah.
They may say no, they may say yes,
The only
whatever.
thing they care about.
So if they say no, come back the next meeting and say, no, we don't have a lease, and then what do we do now? Okay? And that, apparently there's no problems with the the landmark. So Penguin Hall, Penguin Academy, who used to be Penguin Hall, may say, oh, we're not doing that. And that, so you can report back next meeting that they say no. For that amount of money, we're out of here. We're not going to do it, or something, I don't know, whatever their answer is. Or they will, so, that, okay, we got it, we'll pay that amount of money.
And the
And-
language that I was referring to, that you might think would need legal, I think is literally just referring to a document that is already
Yeah, that's
legally
easy.
looked at a million
That is
times.
already
That-
in the
that's
documents.
easy. I read the damn thing, and it's
And it, that's a whole
a
other.
damn thing, too.
That's a whole nother agenda item for another meeting.
We're not going to have a special meeting on that agreement, but
No,
anyway.
no, no, I mean, at a later meeting, it will come up.
All righty, we'll pass over that, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yes, please, thank you. Never would have imagined that the next thing is, I think, going to be way more straightforward,
We'll see.
I think. Of course, I was
Okay, a few people back there I recognize. Let me introduce the
sorry to
subject.
keep you waiting.
And that, recommendation of a $250,000, I suppose, grant from Affordable Housing Trust funds committed to Harbor Light Community Partners for 62 Maple Street application. Go.
Hi, my name is Josh Anderson. I'm the chairman of the Affordable Housing Trust. At our last meeting on September 5th, we voted to make just that amount of funding, $250,000 to Maple Woods in the form of a loan, a subordinate loan. The rationale is we can then make sure that they do what we want, and if they don't do what we want over time, we can call the loan. So the things we wanted were everything that the town meeting voted with a great majority, so we just adopted all the conditions that the town meeting put on the CPC funding. We added a couple of things, let's see, that the loan be callable if the project ever failed to meet the requirements of DHCD for a local action unit to protect us from 40B. That if they ever applied to be exempt from paying taxes in Wenham, then we could call the loan, because they've represented that they're gonna pay taxes. And let me see, that the loan would be for 30 years. Usually after 30 years, the property that's affordable housing needs to get recapitalized or reworked, and to be able to, they could come back and ask to renew the loan, then it would be in conjunction with a bigger refinancing like let's see. Bearing no interest and no current payments, just the callability, so it's not a grant. And that the age restriction be 62 and over. And I think that was it. The trust had 6 of 7 members there. There were 4 votes in favor, 2 abstentions.
There were 6 members, right. So, so that for the viewing audience who did not attend our annual town meeting last April, this was a subject of a CPC vote for $750,000 that the town, after debate, overwhelmingly approved. And in my brief speech at the town advocating that they approve this, I also mentioned that the Harbor Light Community Partners, the developer, would only go forward if he received a minimum of $1 million in funding from the town. And as I mentioned at the time, the CPC was recommending $750,000, and I said we should anticipate a $250,000 application to the Affordable Housing Trust for the remaining amount of money to fulfill that $1 million commitment that Harbor Light Community Partners wanted before they would proceed. So the $250,000 application was not out of the air. It was an amount of money that would make the minimum amount that the Harbor Light Community Partners wanted before they would proceed. And this is where the application came from, and that why it's $250,000. And that, and I'm glad to see that out of the 6 members of the 7-member committee, 4 voted in favor, 2 abstentions. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to open it up to my colleagues here.
Oh, I should just mention that Andrew DeFranz is here if there are any questions from
Right.
Overlay.
Who could miss him? Who
That
else
hand-
wears a goatee in
That
this?
handsome dude down there.
Can I, as the rep on the Affordable Housing Trust, just make, this is really short. We had a good meeting, it went exactly as Josh said. I was one of the abstentions, and not because I disagreed with anything, only that I, as often, had questions that remain unanswered. That being said, I think this motion, as written here, which is everything that Josh just said, with the addition that we always have, of that there has to be a grant agreement, I'm perfectly fine with it. So
Well-
I have no further comment.
I'm ready to rock and roll.
Then I move, whatever I just said a minute ago.
Yeah.
I move to recommend the Board of Selectmen that $250,000 be funded from the Affordable Housing Trust, be committed to Harbor Light Community Partners for a project per the application at 62 Maple Street in the form of a subordinate loan that bears no interest, no payments, with a term of 30 years, as Josh said a minute ago, and be contingent upon, 1, all contingencies from the CPC agreement approved by town meeting in 2019. Loan is callable, I think there should be one word, not two, if any units fails to meet the income restriction requirements set by DHCD. What the hell is that, by the way?
Department
Department of Housing.
Community
Of
Development.
course. Qualifying such unit as an LAU, a loan action unit under 40B, and callable, one word, if ownership applies to be tax exempt from Wenham real estate taxes. 3, Harbor Light Community Partners applies for as much local preference from the state as possible to be obtained. I don't know how you measure that, but okay. The age restriction for the project be age 62 and over.
And there's one more sentence?
And the grant,
I think we received an
Oh, yeah.
updated motion.
well,
It's in I see, that's why I kept mine in a paper clip. It's just the last sentence that was
Yeah.
added that we've taught, that's standard language for all of our,
excuse me, it's right there. Nikki, no, my problem, not yours. Oh, gosh, she'll kill me tomorrow. Approval is subject to the parties entering into a mutually acceptable grant agreement setting forth the terms of said payment. It didn't say number 5, that's why I didn't read it. So
Yes.
that,
so I would second that motion.
in further discussion.
None.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Wasn't that easy, huh? You had to stay for that one, huh?
I told you this. I told you this. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Oh, and Josh, before Josh leaves, can I take a moment? Josh his actual term was going to be up at the end of the year, but we are saying goodbye to him because he's moving out of town next month. But that's not really what I wanted to say. What I wanted to do is thank Josh for his, 9+ years of very hard work on the Affordable Housing Trust. And I think he has one more meeting, official meeting, before he leaves us. But I just wanted to make sure the selectmen understood, and we publicly thanked him for the work that he has done. It's been a lot of work.
Well, thank you very much.
So
Great
thank you.
job. Thank you.
Fully agreed, and you're going to be a hard act to follow.
Yeah, so does the trust think. The trust thinks.
Good, good. All right, thank you so
Josh.
much for being here.
Thank you.
So if nothing else, I'll move to adjourn.
I would
moved.
second.
All in favor? Aye. It's